Today's show is brought to you by Actual 5 Hour Energy. This is not a fake ad. Today's show is literally brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie Podcast. I, as always, am your co-host, Brian, and joining me, as always, for these morning shows, thankfully, is your co-host, Spaz.
Brought to you by Not Enough Caffeine.
Yeah, I might need another 5 Hour Energy later today. After maybe 4 hours, I'll need another 5 hours.
I've already down one Rockstar, and I'm still going, so we'll see how this goes.
I don't know. Rockstar does nothing for me, which is weird. Like, you'd think all these energy drinks would, like, have a similar effect, but, like, the only one of those that works for me is the Monsters. That's the only one that works for me. Maybe Red Bull, but Red Bull, tastes like I'm drinking liquid Smarties. It's just too
very true.
it's just too tart. It's just too tart for me. But folks, we have I'm gonna butcher all this. I should have asked how to say all this before we started, man. Joining us from Kajaani, Finland. Was I close?
It's close.
What
Kajaani would be.
Kajaani.
Mm-hmm.
It's a silent J. Excuse me. Okay, I should have asked you how to say your name.
No, it's more fun this way.
Here we go. Oh, great. Okay, joining us from Kajaani, Finland. Here we go. Sazu Kempainen.
Perfect.
Really? No.
Almost. It's very good. It's very good.
Okay, because I thought the second S should sound more like a Z. That's what my brain did. Is that correct or?
No, it's just soft. It's just Sasu.
Sasu.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
I'm so sorry.
I sometimes get called Sazu, which is fun.
I
works
think,
for me.
I don't know where I learned that. Probably some other foreign language class about some other language or something. But yes, welcome back, friends. If you're not aware, we had Sasu. I'm just gonna say Sazu. I'm sorry. That's just what that's just what my brain's gonna do. I hope that's okay.
That works for me.
Thank you. We had Sazu back on in I think 2014-ish, maybe 2015. I think it was 2014, to talk about their last planetary artillery game, Interplanetary, which I want to talk about before we get to Worbital, because that game has also had an interesting history, which I want to talk about. If you're not aware, both Interplanetary and Worbital are kind of, I would say they have scorched earth in their lineage. You know, the tank artillery game. You know what I'm talking about, right?
A little bit of Worms.
Yeah, a little bit of Worms.
Definitely.
But it totally takes it to another level with the orbital mechanics. So we had you back on a while ago to talk about Interplanetary, which didn't really have, if I recall, much of a plot or a story. It was more like just shoot things. But then you had the enhanced edition of Interplanetary. Now, how did that come about?
Well, enhanced edition, that was released 2017. The original Interplanetary in early access 2014, and 2015 was the actual release. So we got the chance to do enhanced edition. We actually got the backing from Team 17 to do this. We were kind of like looking for this kind of publishing deals for it at the time. And one of the things about, one of the reasons why we wanted to do enhanced edition, well, basically there were lots of, because Interplanetary was one of our, well, it was basically our first big game like that. And we had some issues with the netcode and this kind of problems that we just could not fix because of the problems with the actual engine that we made a bit messy because, we're just trying our best at the time. So that was one of the reasons why we actually wanted to sort of redo this whole thing and do this enhanced edition on top of a kind of a newer engine. So basically build the whole game up again from ground up, so we can add some of the features that the players had been requesting. And also, well, our secret plan at the time was also to build some base for the possible games afterwards, mainly Worbital at the time. We were already kind of thinking about that possibility at the time.
Right. And when did you guys start working on Worbital?
When did we start working on it? That's a good question. I think we sort of enhanced edition came out in 2017, so our proper work on Worbital started in 2018 actually, but before that we had some little plans and prototypes and things like this.
Right.
So yeah, I'm a bit hazy on the exact dates here, but it kind of overlaps.
Okay, and one now, folks, if you're not aware of what these games are, I mean, we mentioned it, but basically, like if you remember games like Worms or Scorched Earth, the worms or the tanks were the platforms by which you launched the weapons. But in these games, you have a map of a solar system, and it's the planets that are the platforms by which, or from which. I think either works. Sorry, my brain. I think so. The planets are the platforms that you use to launch the weapons, and so it adds this level, this complication of orbital mechanics to it, where you have some weapons that will only shoot in a straight line, so you got to wait till your planet comes back around so you can aim it right. And and because you're on a sphere, you can't shoot every gun every time, because it's pointing away from the damn enemies. So it really adds a level of, I don't want to say complication because that sounds bad, but skill, complexity. Thank you. Yeah, it adds a level of complexity that a lot of other games don't have. And Worbital, I mean, not only you've kept it pretty straightforward, but so much else has gotten a revamp. The AI is astounding in this game.
Oh yes, I'm gonna forward that to our AI guy because I also I'm really really happy how it got how we progressed with that.
It kicked my. I played a little bit of the campaign, which was challenging. And then I played several skirmish maps after because I'm like, the campaign, got me a little ready for the different weapons and the different things. I'll try some skirmish maps. I have not won one skirmish game.
Oh, man. I think we made it a bit too hard. But yeah.
I don't mind that,
normal.
Though. I
got
don't
destroyed.
Mind that.
Yeah, I don't mind
we
that
did get some. I did. Later on, we did do a little bit of a patch for the campaign to make it a little bit easier. But alongside that, we also patched in an extreme mode that's like I don't know who can beat that. I have difficulty with that one, but it's really fun to just kind of challenge yourself.
Yeah, it's really just amazing to watch the. It's amazing to watch the AI play the game so well. Because, with a lot of games with AI, things can be fudged behind numbers, or things can be fudged under the hood, But with this game, you see everything. You see everything. I mean, I don't think there's anything they can hide. I mean, you see what they build, you see how they aim, and everything. And so it's yes, there's stuff going on under the hood, but it's they can't really cheat,
A little bit sometimes. The impossible AI setting that does cheat a little bit with the resources and stuff. But that's just for fun, We have the impossible AI always have just for an extra challenge and named it in such way so that we can kind of allow it to do these little cheats. But people have been beating those pretty easily also once they practice.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at. This is a game that requires actual skill, and you can tell that the AI is also tapping into that as well, because it'll miss. If I've seen it miss, which is great. It feels because you don't want an AI that's perfect. that never misses. You know, you want an AI that, I mean, this is something developers complain about all the time. Like, no one wants a perfect AI. They want an AI that is fallible, that feels like a person. Like, they don't want to, like, I don't want to play against actual people because I don't really like most other people. So I want an AI that gives me like a good challenge that a person might give me. And when you see them miss, and when you see them, you know, not build everything like 100% efficiently, that's great. And even though the AI has kicked my ass every time, I've never felt like it was because I did something wrong. I never felt like it like had some kind of godlike powers over me. You know what I mean? It was like, nope, this was pretty much my fault.
That's very nice to hear.
Yeah, it's an I'm not good enough yet kind of
Exactly.
thing, rather than the AI is too good.
Exactly. And that is really nice to see, because getting good AI is challenging. You know, like I could count, I think, on one, maybe two hands, the amount of games where the AI is actually really excellent. Like, what? Unreal Tournament. Pandora. Or this.
Yeah, nothing really comes to mind. That's very high praise. Like I was actually really floored with this when, of course it took a long time. We were in a beta for quite a while too, for many months before launch, and that of course gave us a lot of time to work on these little details. And we had like a specific guy working on exclusively on the AI for this whole time, so he did a really good job.
That's interesting, because you don't hear. I don't know if I've ever heard that, or maybe I haven't heard it much, where there's a sole person dedicated to the AI. I think
it probably does happen, but we had this chance to do it. Of course, like it's just this project because we're sort of a small company. We often do like smaller projects on the side also. So he was working on another project also, but for Worbital he was exclusively, and I guess most of the time he spent on Worbital, and it was exclusively on the AI.
But you can tell that a lot of work has been put into the AI, because it gives a really satisfying challenge, and this game is very challenging. I mean, this is not. It's not just, you know, point and shoot. It's you have to. That's the thing, though. I mean, I'm jumping all over the place. I apologize, but it's early morning and I'm barely caffeinated. Games that deal with orbital mechanics can be very too complicated. Like, one of the reasons I don't play Kerbal Space Program very often is I think it's a little too complicated to be fun for me. You know what I mean? I mean, I know a lot of people love it. I know it's very popular and it's great, and I know a lot of people love it, and that's great. But it's just too complicated for me. But when you have a game like yours, I've not tried the gamepad controls. I must admit, I've been using solely mouse and keyboard. But when you have something that makes dealing with orbital mechanics so straightforward, that's really something great, because I mean, that's hard to do. I think I only know like one other game that does it as well as this, and that's Adios Amigos.
Oh,
which I don't know if you played, but
no, I have. I'm not familiar.
Oh, you should check that out. It's so great. It's so great. But
give it a try. Yeah,
that game also deals very heavily with orbital mechanics, but it also makes them accessible, is what I'm getting at. So
I think like that accessibility was really important here, especially. Like I have to say that Worbital, a lot of it was just answer to Interplanetary in a way, because Interplanetary is sort of serious and turn-based, and you know, that kind of a game. And afterwards, it's kind of a funny story how it turned out. Like we were working on a couple of different projects afterwards, Interplanetary, also at the enhanced edition at the time, and starting to feel a little bit like, I'm not going to say burnt out, but a little bit like, oh, this Interplanetary project is just lasted since 2013 or something. So kind of had this feeling all of a sudden that, like, hey, why don't we go for something like, let's just take the same base idea, but ditch all the realism and just go for the like as fun things as we can come up with and put them there and make it real time and everything like that. So like make this chaotic little weird goof off game that does sort of like I almost felt like while thinking about this concept at first that it's almost like a parody of Interplanetary, just making fun of all the science that we tried to put in there and just do the dumbest things like you can punch the planets off the orbits and those kind of stuff. And just
I actually had that happen once, and it was so frustrating because there was nothing I can do to get it back. I just like
you just got to learn to use the weapons, because there's like lots of players have a strategy that they do that on purpose because it really can help.
Right, but I didn't think at the time to use the recoil of the weapons to push me back. So I just kept drifting and drifting and drifting. It's like, oh god, this is terrible. But it was hilarious. But it was terrible.
Yeah.
But it was hilarious.
That was like from the early prototype when we were testing this idea. We went to the game development school that is here in Kajaani, that I think most of us actually graduated from. Wow. We went there to test the game, and just at that point we knew that this was going to work nicely, because the people who were playing that game, they just started laughing and shouting and everything. Like we knew that this was the right thing that we were going for, just to make it weird and funny with planets exploding and not so serious and like Interplanetary was.
Right, and you're right that it is satisfying when you score a good hit. You know, it feels really good because you're not always sure you're going to score a good hit. You know, you might miss by like a fraction of an inch, and it might fly over the planet. You're like, because even that,
when you get it, you earned it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, which is really, really nice.
Actually, something that I wanted to mention still about the how the Worbital came up with the idea. One of the things, we had an Interplanetary on the Steam forums. There was a thread about someone asking if we could make a mod for Interplanetary or a mode where it would be real time instead of turn-based. And that at the time sounded like, what? Like, you can't do that. But it's sort of the idea just kept growing, and just thinking later on, like, maybe we could do this as a separate game. And that's sort of like one of the seeds of the idea. So I always have to remember to mention that forum thread, because that was an important part.
I have to.
Wouldn't it be cool if has led to so many different ideas becoming games?
I do have to admit, though, one of the reasons I only have a little bit of time in the game is because it's real time. It actually gives me anxiety. It actually gives me anxiety.
Yeah, well, I guess there's also like when you're just starting out and you're not like super confident with all the mechanics and whatever, and the AI is just hammering at you. Like, I get that. I think like probably it's kind of a harsh game in that way. That of course there's the sandbox where you can try things out, but otherwise, if you try to go to a match and you don't know what's going on, then I get that.
Yeah, I mean, and this is not a knock against your game. It's just like I find that as I get older, if games make me a little anxious, like I need, like, I'll play something else because like I don't need that anxiety. A lot of games. I've found as I get older, there are fewer games types of games I play because they give me, like, I can't really play XCOM style games anymore. I just can't.
Oh.
Because it's like, I'm going to move that little guy over there and he's going to get shot to death. It's like, nope, can't do it. I don't want him to get shot. I'm done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you just got to quit and start all over.
Yeah, but it's weird. Like, if I'm in direct control of something, like an Assassin's Creed or a Risk of Rain, I got no problems. You know? But if I'm controlling, like, 3 other guys, like, no, God. It's weird. It's weird. As I get older, I find things are definitely changing in my brain. So the real time does make it a lot more stressful for people like me, but that's in a way I think a good thing, because this thing gets so hectic, especially the more planets you add. It's just, but it's hilarious. Like, I've seen some matches that are just goddamn funny.
Chaos is the key word that we've always like tried to go with this. Like even when there's a possibility to balance something, if we had a possibility to balance something perfectly or make it a bit more chaotic, we'll go for the chaotic for this game because it's just funny.
Which is nice because it's just nice because so many games are so like, oh, it has to all be balanced. It has to all be balanced. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You can let things be a little
true. Yeah.
You can let like one of the reasons people still play, say, Master of Magic is because you can become so goddamn overpowered in that game that you're changing the terrain, for example, and whatnot. But that's fine. It's a single player game, whatever. But to do that in a multiplayer game where you have stuff that's a little overpowered, but maybe you need to get through a couple of tiers to get to it, is fine. Like
it still works pretty well.
Someone else could use their own strategy, and because you have more of a long burn to get to where you need to be in order to be that overpowered, someone else with a faster build strategy, they put out a bunch of refineries to start off with, and they're just cranking out their tiers before you can get to where you need to be. You can they can rush you, and then you don't have a chance to do what you want to do because your opponents haven't let you get there.
Yeah, and there is like we spent a lot of time on making it like a pleasantly balanced, or at least trying to do that. But like we've gone from the very beginning, we've been aware that just the main concept of this game, this chaotic space thing where the fragments of planets fly everywhere and explode other planets, and you get derailed and you just get spawned on different orbits, that it's not going to be like 100%. Well, what I'm trying to say, that luck is involved in this game, but we've just wanted to actually just embrace that and go in the direction where that makes it fun.
Yeah, and it is fun. I mean, it's definitely challenging, and it's chaotic, and it's stressful, but like the weapons are so silly and the graphics are so colorful, like you can't ever be mad at it. Like even when you lose, you're like, I get it. That was funny.
Yeah, well, that's really, really what I really wanted from the game. That people wouldn't just get really mad when they lose, because that's going to happen a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean every time I lost a skirmish, I was never mad because, like, yeah, I see what I did wrong, or yeah, they built better than I did, or whatever. And one thing I love is that even though there aren't a lot of weapons, there's about a dozen. Maybe about
there's actually I have the exact number here. There's 78 weapons, so there's quite a bit.
78? Oh, right. I'm thinking the different factions have different weapons. I forgot about that.
Oh, part. Yeah. That's like all together. But it's a bit of a shame that you need to unlock many of them. So we didn't get as many of these like YouTube videos that we wanted of people playing with the actual like the real fun weapons that we put at the very end.
Oh, okay. I've gotten nowhere near that, but I was just gonna say, like, I love how, like, if you want to focus on, say, the manual rocket thing that you shoot a rocket and then you have to control it, it's pretty powerful, but it's so easy to miss.
Yeah,
or get shot down.
It's kind of easy shoot down. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So you could have like 4 Gatling guns if you wanted to go more defensive, and like maybe just a couple of other like more longer range weapons to hit your enemies with. So yeah, there's so much going on, and I love how you've forced people to think on their toes, because like each planet only has what, 8
sectors.
8 sectors
to build.
And you like when you start, you're like, I'm just going to build a couple of guns and a couple of refineries, and that's it. It's like, no, you can't just build one and done. You can't.
Yeah.
You know,
you got to keep replacing them all the time.
Exactly, and that is. I learned that late. I did not. For me, it was like, oh, this is going to work for the entire game. Nope. No, it's not.
Well, of course, like you can keep upgrading them, and they actually the early tier weapons they become pretty strong, but you probably still want to have at least one tier 3 weapon at some point, because they do so much damage, and lots of them are really cool.
Yeah, and
you
how
also
do
have
you,
to think about placement too.
yeah,
Because that's a big factor, because you may be able to put your weapons all on one side, but not be able to use them 3/4 of the time if you do that, or you have to use them in a way so that you can arc their orbit around and hit the opponent on the other side. That's
Yeah. You do, like, if you want to do well, you should really think about strategy and tactics sometimes. Like, we often do these events where we go play with the players, like usually on Fridays or Thursdays. And the last time, like, I often just kind of like go try weird, crazy things on those play sessions, but that's just, it's really funny. But the dumbest thing I just recently did, that I fired like I wonder what it was, like a nuke or some really powerful shot at the enemy, while I was actually using an orbit swap on them, which would eventually swap my planet's place with them. So I like fired that nuke at myself, and well, that's it was a really fun moment. I'll remember that for a long time. But man, you really do have to sometimes think what you're doing in this game.
wait, you fired a nuke at yourself?
Yeah, because there's this weapon called orbit swap that when you fire it on another planet, it starts flashing for a moment, but then after a couple of seconds, it switches the positions of your planet with that other planet.
Whoa.
So for some reason, I fired an orbit swap at the planet and then nuked the planet, and before it just swapped the planets, and basically I got nuked by myself. So yeah, congratulations me.
That's
if the timing had been better.
Yeah.
That's
Just forget, fire and forget, I guess.
That's kind of amazing that you can do that in the first place. Now,
oh yeah, that's a great weapon, I think.
What are some of the, would you say, crazier weapons that you've implemented in the game? That, I mean, I clearly haven't seen them, but like, what are maybe some of the craziest and or your favorites?
I'm a fan of some of these weapons that have sort of like a combo potential with each other. There's I don't know how many people actually know about this, but there's this weapon called mist dispersion. It's on Terrain Tier 3, and when you fire it, it breaks into this big cloud of mist that exists there for a long time, and it slows down all the projectiles that go through it. It's a really good defensive thing and everything like that, but it has a secret mechanic that some of the weapons have. When you fire weapons at it, like let's say like a flamethrower, it actually bursts into this smoke screen that hides everything that's under the weapon, under basically the smoke screen. So you can just fire that around and no one will be able to see you there in the game at all, or you can fire secret shots from there. Like, that's one of the weirdest things that I think that lots of people don't even know about. Then there's Star Drive is an amazing weapon. Is that it just, once you activate it, it automatically derails your planet from the orbit, and you can move it around like a spaceship. And if you build some spikes on front of the planet, which are these kind of buildings that sort of like, you can use a planet to ram other planets off their orbits by just driving at them with Star Drive. And I could go on. There's a couple of really fun ones.
That's wonderful.
Send them into the sun.
Yeah, sure, of course, and you know you can also derail the sun, because that's my actual favorite weapon is a world rammer, which is it's unlocked by default by many of the factions. If you fire it to a planet, it derails the planet from its orbit, and the planet suddenly at the mercy of the gravity, and it's not like stuck on the orbit line like they usually are. And it can bounce to other planets, and they can get derailed. But actually, if you keep firing that world rammer at the sun, like I think currently is it like 4 times or 5 times, the sun gets derailed, and it starts moving around the solar system, and it can collide with your planets, and it's just chaos.
Oh dear God. That sounds awful and amazing and awful and amazing.
Yeah. So we had like one match a couple of times, a little while ago, where two players were actually like playing a sort of a ping pong with the sun. The sun was between the two planets, and they were shooting at the sun. So it was like, no, don't come here, get to that guy. And eventually, the sun couldn't take it anymore, so it exploded into a black hole.
Oh god!
I think
that can happen.
Yeah, it feels like people who haven't played the game probably think I'm just making all this up, because we just added a lot of these like weird mechanics in the game that, well, most of them do make sense, but there's like, for example, the lasers can get fused into each other if you shoot them at the right time, and you can basically, like, if you fire your laser at the enemy's laser, they kind of like fuse together and make a super laser, but it's really difficult to use to your advantage. But you can still do it sometimes.
Don't cross the streams, basically.
Yeah.
At this point, I am wondering if there will ever be a mode in which you have a reflective wall surrounding the arena you're in, the solar system you're in.
That'd be funny.
And anything that hits it will reflect off.
Oh, we have the opposite actually. Currently, we have three different solar system types in the game, and one of them is called Broken Utopia. The sun is enveloped by this Dyson sphere sort of AI, and if you fire at that AI, it will bounce back your projectiles. It's not on the sides, but it's on the very center. So you can do that, and you can just mirror your shots at the enemies. But if you do that too much, of course, that AI gets really mad and starts firing their own projectiles at you.
Now, one thing that this game has that the original didn't, if I recall, well, not the original, but Interplanetary, is like a campaign. I don't recall that Interplanetary had a character-driven campaign like this one does. But it's not just character-driven. You have 3 factions with their own styles and weapons and everything, and they've got like their own little different timelines and whatnot. Yeah,
that was when we were still planning on launching Worbital for consoles. Eventually, we don't know the time yet, but that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to do this campaign mode for Worbital. It wasn't in the very original plans to do that. That's basically because for consoles, I think it's on all consoles nowadays that you have to pay to use online. So we just wanted something a bit more for the single player experience. Right. So that people who don't have the paid online, they can also enjoy that.
But the campaign's also really funny. Like, it's really...
Oh, that's nice to hear. I did see you play it.
I like the writing. I do like the writing.
It's very
thank
funny.
You very much.
And very silly. But I also like how each of them are a little different. Like, they're all their own little contained timelines. Like, in one timeline, like, you'll have one planet destroy the other planet, but in another timeline, that second planet destroys the first planet. You know? So they're
I was kind of thinking something like, I was kind of thinking something like Command and Conquer, how they used to do those things. Like they sort of like in the... What is GDI ending, the GDI wins, and the not ending, not wins. Right. They don't kind of like work together like that. It was the first time I was doing this kind of writing, and I had a really fun time with that. So I'm glad that people seem to have liked it.
Yeah. So tell us about the 3 factions, because you have kind of like the original faction, and then you kind of have. Well, you kind of have the really technological faction, and like, how would you describe the 3 different factions?
Yeah, well, there's usually start with terrain. That's the basically this is sort of like gameplay wise, it's defensive and offensive in a sort of a balance. It's sort of like the basic faction. There's sort of conservative in a way that. The weapons are sort of not quite as far out as the other factions have. It's sort of based on the little background story that we did tell in the Interplanetary, the Terrene faction is, and the Terrene are led by the leader Rem Amasho, with a weird name again from Interplanetary originally. Sort of like these little connections here and there, and these. faction leaders sort of like they work as your announcers in the game, that they let you know when you're hitting the enemy and when they're hitting you and that kind of stuff, and you can dress them in costumes, whatever. And the second faction is Lucid, which is all about these like really powerful weapons. And one of their weapons, for example, well, everyone has this sort of like a basic railgun weapon that you just fire at the enemies and do the normal target line of it, the basic weapon. And the Lucid, actually, they fire 3 shots at once. And of course, when you upgrade it a bit more, so it's all about firing a lot of projectiles at your enemies, doing a lot of damage. And I guess one of the signature weapons would be the evacuator, which actually explodes your planet when you use it, and you get to evacuate on a new one. So you can use the charge of your planet to actually cause damage to the enemies. And then there's the Celestials. That's the really technological faction. That's kind of like goes very overboard, almost to the pretty much to the realm of fantasy with the technology. Everything's sort of sci-fi-ish, explained in weird techno babble, but it's like really weird. Like you can fire these portable black holes, and you have orbit boosters that let your planet go faster on your orbit, and derailment, and the star drive that I was mentioning earlier. So basically, to sum up, I guess there's a terrain that's sort of like, I tend to call it like the Mario. It's the basic, like it does defense well. It has defensive shields and weapons, and then there's the Lucid that's a really good on attack, and Celestials are just crazy technological wizards.
And basically, when you're playing the campaign, you get this kind of currency that unlocks like clothing and other stuff. It's not like kind of a pay to win type anything where you.
No, you do unlock weapons also with that, but
okay.
We try to make it very carefully so that your initial loadout is basically as good as any, but the weapons that you unlock later are just weirder and more fun.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's where balance can be really handy, is like making that initial loadout effective. So that
I hope
sense.
Yeah, I hope it worked out.
Well, I couldn't tell you because I haven't won a match, so I don't know. Yeah. But I also like that. So you have this great campaign. There's 4 or 5 missions for each.
Yeah, there's 4 missions
faction?
per each faction, and this is basically the story of how they ended up on different planets and started this war between them, and sort of like just trying to come up with the weirdest things to justify the weird mechanics of this game, and I had a lot of fun with that.
I could tell because it's very silly. It's very cartoonish. It gets very dark at times. Like I just shot my own city. I just shot my own city just to make a point. Like, what is wrong with you, dude? Oh my god!
I have a weird liking to these kind of sort of like silly but weirdly serious at the same time. Like I guess you could call Hitchhiker's Galaxy something like that. Not that Worbital is anything like Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy.
I know exactly what you're talking about, though. Like Hitchhiker's Guide can get dark when it really wants to, but stays funny. Like I always think about when they go to the restaurant and the cow's like, I'm gonna go and shoot myself now. It's like whole it's funny, but it's also like, I guess it's great to have a genetically engineered cow that wants to die for your food, more than a cow that doesn't.
There's like a weird point there too.
Yeah, exactly, but it's still dark. It's like that's always stuck with me, like as one of the darker moments in that entire series. Like, whoa. It's such a little thing, but it sticks with you. So besides the campaign, you have multiplayer and single player skirmishes as well. Mm-hmm. And you can. Am I remembering correctly that you can also get points to unlock things by playing the skirmishes as well?
Yeah, you can get it from pretty much everywhere. Not even tutorial, I guess. Yeah. pretty much every mode you can get the points. Like generally in the we call it dark matter. In campaign, once you finish a mission you get some cosmetic unlocks, and you get some dark matter to unlock cosmetics or weapons. But in like these skirmishes, you get dark matter by shooting down gold asteroids or whatever you have on that solar system. It kind of changes on the solar system type. And when you explode planets, you also get dark matter. And when you win or lose, basically, you every time you play a match, you get some dark matter at least.
Oh, right. Okay, but you get... So if you blow up like... Oh, I see. So if I blow up like 3 or 4 different planets, you get more dark matter in the end out of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I forgot to mention there's this mechanic where to get extra money, you can shoot at a lifeless moon or a lifeless planet. Yes. I forgot to mention that. So you're not.
That's how usually matches start.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like people. You just go online and you see people are just starting to fire at the empty planets, because in a way, if you're really good at it, it's actually better than just building refineries.
Really? Okay, I'll have to try that next time I play, because usually I just build a couple of refineries and start shooting at my enemy.
That works also.
Right, but I keep forgetting about that mechanic where you could shoot at other planets and you get money for every successful shot. I always forget about that until I see the enemy doing it. I'm like, oh yeah. I have to admit that's a clever little thing.
I kind of like that was something also that came from Interplanetary, is that I wasn't super happy how you basically just have to build so many mines to keep up your economy, and that's just you concentrate so much on that. So I sort of wanted to tie it to the actual orbital mechanics, that money collection as well. So all the time you're playing Worbital, basically you're doing the most fun things that you can do, which is fire at planets, and you get rewarded from that.
Right, but I like how you've made firing at like not directly your enemy also rewarding. Like that's a clever thing. That's really clever.
There's also the thing that you can if you actually like destroy a planet early game, even you get dark matter. But if it happens to be close to your enemy, the shards do so much damage. Basically, they're sort of like a late game damage level, because they do start exploding a lot more back then. But if you do manage to destroy maybe a little moon that's right next to your enemy at the very start of the game, you'll get a little head start, because the shards will just fly at your enemy.
Oh. God, all these little... There's so much... It's funny, when you first look at the game, you're like, just planets shooting other planets. But there's so much more going on here.
There's a nice amount of depth. Yeah.
Yeah, which is nice. And that adds to the replayability. I mean, even after you're done the campaign, and those campaign missions aren't short. Like the first one might be like 20, 30 minutes, but they get way more complicated the further you go in.
Yeah, we made them recently a little bit shorter, because I felt like they were a little bit maybe
really?
bit overboard for like. Actually, I was watching that video that you made. You were playing that, and I was just there thinking that it's maybe a slightly little bit too long. So we made it a little bit shorter, like gave you a little bit more damage to make it sort of like a more fun thing that you maybe you don't quite breeze through it, but it's a bit faster and more. There's a bit more happening there, so you can maybe new players will also get more encouraged to go to the skirmishes, because the craziest stuff really does happen there. So it's like I'm really hoping that people will get to experience that as well.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I think I don't remember how long like the first couple missions were. I didn't think they were too long. But it's your game, man. But I've also noticed that on Steam, you guys have pretty much really great reviews. This thing is really garnering very positive response with people.
Oh yeah, I'm really happy about that side. Like Yeah, this is like so far. I think I'm most proud of Worbital of all the games that I've worked on, basically because of the reception that it's gotten. Like I don't remember. We probably had a couple of negative reviews on Steam, but like I haven't really heard about that elsewhere. Like all the like review sites and everything, it's always been very positive, and I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to see. I mean, this is let's be honest. This is kind of a niche thing in a niche, you know.
Certainly, yeah.
And to see it, to see it get such a positive response is great, because
it's a little bit of a cult. Almost.
Well, not only that, but gamers are really, really like jaded and entitled right now, to be honest. And so, to see a niche game like this just get such a positive response is very heartening, I have to admit.
Yeah, it's very nice. We actually when we started the beta a couple of months before we released the game, we started our own Discord server, which is our first time of doing anything like that. And I think that was maybe the best thing that we did for the game, because we really quickly it grew into this very nice place where people are still chatting about Worbital and playing matches. And whenever, like, you know, we're still like a small company and a relatively small game. Whenever there's someone going on Steam or something, like they can find players to play with, we can always point out to the Discord server, which is Team Jolly Roger Discord. And you can find the link from our forums for Worbital, and like it's a really nice place. It feels like a kind of a cultish in the best sense of the word.
It's always great when you hear a game has a positive community surrounding it, unlike a lot of games where their community is just toxic as all get out. It's really nice to hear about a positive community.
Yeah, we haven't really had like hugely toxic communities before that or anything, but like even sometimes when it tilts to that direction just a little bit, it gets really like rough for me, at least. And it's for Worbital, it's been really, really nice.
So we haven't talked about the consoles yet. It's coming to consoles soon, right? Like, how soon would you say it's going to be hitting? It's hitting all three of them, right? It's hitting the PS4, it's hitting the Xbox, it's hitting the Switch.
Yeah, that's the plan. And well, I don't think I can really say any details on the dates yet, because we're still working on that. But it is coming. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try the game with a gamepad, because I mean, it's something. I don't know if you noticed this, but there's something more relaxing about playing something with a gamepad than with a mouse and keyboard. Actually,
like, it's a little bit like some little things on Worbital are easier with mouse and keyboard, but I've been like more leaning towards the gamepad myself recently. I've been playing with that a lot more, and it's just like well, the whole UI is sort of designed in a way that it would work very well on a gamepad as well. And I think like maybe the targeting is not quite as easy as it is with a mouse, but it's not too bad. But the actual like selection of buildings and using defenses and stuff like that, that makes it, I think that's much easier to actually do on a controller. So I do recommend you give it a try.
I am going to give it a try. Is there any kind of like, because a lot of games do this when you switch between a mouse and a gamepad, is there any kind of auto aim going on when you use a gamepad?
No, actually, there's no auto aim really, but it's not too bad. You can have a couple of features there that you can kind of slow the aiming down, but it doesn't give you any additional help.
That's interesting. That's good to know, actually.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to think about that if it comes to it. Like, well, not many players actually do play with a controller, but those who have, they haven't seemed to have much trouble with it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm very excited to see it come to consoles. Is there more coming for the game itself? I mean, it looks like it's been doing pretty well. So is there going to be any kind of DLC or expansions or anything like that?
Well, we have some updates in stock, and I'm sure that they'll at least come when the console comes out. Like we sort of like changed our priorities at some point more to the console, so this hasn't been getting quite as many updates as we were hoping originally, because we have to use our resources the way we can. But there's a couple of in the horizon. As for DLC, I can only say that I hope so. We'll see how the console launch goes, and it really depends on that.
Yeah, I could see this doing really well on consoles, both online and couch co-op, because it's really easy to set up a multiplayer match, and like I really like how you can have, if I remember correctly, you can have teams so you can play co-op as well. Against
yeah, and on the same screen as well, as you mentioned. Like
yeah,
that's something that some players have mentioned very positively, and I think it's something that it's just fun to try to keep up this couch play tradition, let's say, because not many games do it nowadays.
Yeah, I mean local co-op is, thanks to things like the Steam Link and whatnot, it is becoming more popular. Which is great. But yeah, it's still not as, it's still totally overshadowed by online play. But this has both.
I actually didn't think about that.
But this has both, which is really nice. So I can't. This is coming to Switch. I gotta ask, how does this translate to such a small screen like that? Does it work well?
Surprisingly well, yeah.
Really?
I think they might be doing some little things to the UI, but like trying it out a little bit. It's still a work in progress, those console builds. But I feel like it's pretty playable actually at the moment, even without any like specific changes to the UI.
Yeah, I mean, because I've only seen a Switch in person like once or twice, and it's not a huge screen. And I mean,
I've played it a little bit myself, and it's surprising how well you get used to it. Like you just transfer the game from the TV screen to the portable mode sometimes, and at first it's like whoa, but you do get used to it really, really fast. At least worked for me.
Right. So now that Worbital is out, have you already started work on your next game, or is it all Worbital all the time right now?
It's still Worbital all the time. It's the console launch that's yeah. Let's say that there's like, because as mentioned previously, that we're sort of like a small company here, that right. we do a lot of outsourcing work also as well. Like I don't necessarily count that, but yeah, there's a lot of that going at the same time, like as always. But our next like big project like this, not yet. It's still not even an idea phase of what we're doing with that. We're just still going with the Worbital, doing some updates, and really bracing for the console launch whenever that might be. Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon. We gotta start wrapping up because I gotta go to work. It's almost 7 in the morning.
All right.
But folks, the game we've been talking about, if you haven't picked it up, because we've said it a billion times, is Worbital. It is really fantastic. It's great in single player and multiplayer. It's very challenging, but not brutally so. Like, this is not like the Dark Souls of artillery games or anything. Thank God. It is challenging in a, oh, that was my fault, and I need to do better way. Which is excellent. That's the kind of challenge you want. You don't want something to be unfair. And this game, it's, I mean, I guess unless you play on the most difficult level and you're not ready for it, then maybe it's a little unfair, but that's your choice. So again, yeah, the game is Worbital. It is currently on PC, on Steam. It has single and multiplayer, and it's coming out on consoles really soon. It's going to be on all of them. So if you want to play this on your Switch or on your Xbox, you'll be able to do that hopefully soon, as Sue said. But it is really a fun thing, especially multiplayer. Like I've played, like, I think one multiplayer match with randos who knew way better than I did what was going on, and they kicked my butt. But it was still great to see. But you can also play skirmish with a really great AI, and you can play co-op with the AI as well if you want to like team up. So it's like 3-on-1 or 2-on-1 or whatever. You know, you can do that. So if you don't like other people like I do, you can play single player as well. There's a lot to like here. There's a lot to unlock. It's very fun. It's very funny, especially if you play the campaign. You see what like the backstory is. It's really funny. So there's just, I can't recommend it enough. Unless maybe you're like me and you get anxious with games like this, and after like 20 minutes, you're like, I gotta stop. But if you don't get anxious with games like this, definitely check it out.
No, we could try co-op at some point, I think.
We should. I'll put it on the the calendar. I'll put it on the rotation. So speaking of that, this Thursday, we're playing that Viking game. What the hell is that called? Space Vikings. Yes, we got keys for this a while back, and we said we'd play it. So Space Viking Raiders. So that's what we're playing on the Thursday LAN party. And then next Tuesday on the show, we're going to be welcoming the developer of Stellar. We're back at our normal time, by the way, next Thursday, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be welcoming the developer of the open space exploration and combat game Stellar Nomad, which you can actually download the demo of which on itch.io for free right now if you want to check it out. The demo is available, and it is actually quite fun. You can already join a faction and make money and do missions. It's very early, but there's already a lot going on with that game. So that's what we're going to have up on tap for next week. And again, just a couple of things. We've revamped the Patreon, so if you want to actually contribute content to Space Game Junkie with the right Patreon tier, you can do that now. And there's also swag, stickers, mugs, things like that for specific tiers. So we just revamped that. And the swag will be coming from our new Teespring store, which you can find a link on spacegamejunkie.com. But it's also teespring.com / oh god, on my brain. Space
hyphen junkie hyphen.
Yeah.
Or space hyphen game.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to support us that way, that would be awesome. But, yeah, so we have a lot coming up. So, Suzu, thank you so much for taking time out of
so much.
Your afternoon. It's your afternoon because you're in Finland, so it's your afternoon, but our morning to talk about Worbital. Again, guys, the game is Worbital. It is great. You should definitely check it out because there's only like a few other games like it, one of which being their own Interplanetary, which... if you find Worbital a little too stressful, Interplanetary is turn-based, and it is just as much fun as this. It's a little less tongue-in-cheek, a little more serious, but the gameplay is the same solid artillery gameplay that you'll find in this title. But if you want a turn-based version of this, go check out Interplanetary Advanced Edition, or Enhanced Edition, excuse me, because that is also an excellent game. So thank you everyone for watching and for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye, y'all.